Creativity is freedom. Creativity is unapologetically being yourself. Creativity is liberation that also incites liberation in others. Creativity is divergent. Creativity is ever-changing, always evolving. Creativity is love, because you kind of go crazy on love, you know what I'm saying? You think of a lot of things when you're on that love, not on that lust, but on that love. Creativity is home.
What we do here is go back.
How the old days of hip-hop was, okay? And they said, you know, we would be at the Roxy, and the B-boys was dancing, and then the graffiti writers was spraying, and everybody was just high off the fumes, you know? And it was just raw. The feeling was raw. And that's what I wanted to bring to this show.
My name is Rachel Jackson, and I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas. The variety show is a hip-hop variety show, and it's called RAWr. Yeah. And it fuses hip-hop culture, so all aspects of it. So the DJ, the graffiti, the dance, the MC, and the knowledge. And it fuses that with sketch comedy and improv. And people are like, well, how do you do that? And I'm just like, well, good hip-hop tells the truth, and good comedy tells the truth. You're not gonna laugh at a comedian if they're not telling the truth. Whether it's your truth or not, you can still recognize it as their truth. And that's why you laugh, like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. That is funny if I was in that same position coming from that perspective. And the same thing with hip hop. Hip hop was known as the CNN of the hood. So if you're not telling the truth, you ain't hip hop. So as long as I'm telling the truth, I can easily fuse them together. So that's what I do. And so we have sketches that work with the DJ and bring them to the forefront, or the graffiti artists and bring them to the forefront, bringing the knowledge. So there's socio-political commentary in some of this. So I have like some games like Appropriation or Not, or We're in Jeopardy, which is like a game show to represent the culture of marginalized subcultures. So like I'm black, so I can only talk about black people. But then I have other friends who give me things that are indicative to their culture as well, and we ask questions about them. And at the end of the game, you win a black card. But you can only redeem it at the show, because outside of that venue, I can't save you. I had this deep desire to just go beyond. So I went to Texas A&M, and then after I graduated from there, I ended up going to New York City, which was the complete antithesis of where I'm from, and Texas, and everything I've grown to know. And I just knew that I needed to go. It was either there or Los Angeles as a performer. But I felt that New York had more of a challenge to me, and people were hungrier. So it would push me beyond my limit to really see what I could be and what I could become. And so that's always me, like pushing the limit to see what I can actually be, because I've grown up in such a safe little space, and it's because they didn't want me to fail, or they didn't want me to get hurt, and they wanted to make sure that I could stay just so. But I can't do that.
I'm glad y'all came in. How y'all doing? I said, Houston! I said, Houston!
Well, the beginning of my quest was very, like, it wasn't right for me. When I started school at A&M, I was a mechanical engineering major. I loved Legos and Connects, and I went to engineering campus because I had a telescope and a planetarium growing up. So I thought I would follow that path of like science and math. And I ended up with an internship at the Space Engineering Institute. So I interned at NASA, and I realized that I wasn't passionate about it. Like, it was something I was good at, but I wasn't passionate about, and I couldn't see myself putting more energy into something that was just draining me. And it was an issue being a Black female in the profession because I was constantly having to prove myself to white men around me. I went on this journey through school to figure out what I really wanted to do, and I had always been making people laugh. I had always been dancing around. Like, I love Michael Jackson, so I was trying to be Michael. My last name is Jackson, so I was like, yes, we are kindred in life somehow, you know? And so my main goal was to like have my own TV show and perform and be able to make people laugh and dance and sing and do all these things. And so about halfway through school, I actually started doing that. And the first thing I did was a variety show. We called it the variety show at school, and it was during Parents Weekend, which like all the students, which is like over 50,000 students, and all their family, which is a lot of people, show up, and then they sit there and watch all the talent at Texas A&M. And I actually went against the dance group that I had been dancing with, and I won the whole thing. And it was my first time. It was in front of over 2,000 plus people in Rudder Auditorium. And it was like a big deal. I didn't think I was gonna win. I just wanted to make one person laugh, and I wanted that one person to be sitting right next to my dad. I knew I was onto something, and dancing was also taking off at the same time. And so I knew that I had to do that. I had to. There was no replacement for the high, I felt like a sense of purpose, like I'm supposed to be here. Like the relationship I have with the audience and just the energy that I get from it, it's like a renewal process every time I perform. Like, yes, now the next day I'm completely shot, because you pour out into people that you don't know, and then they run away with it, and then they don't give you nothing back. But just like spiritually, it's renewing. And in that, I found myself, I found home, if that makes any sense. Do I have any advice for any creatives? One, don't be so hard on yourself, because can't nobody tell you how to do you, like, period. If you're gonna be creative, you have to be unapologetically you, so therefore no one can tell you how to do you, be you. Now, if you're doing stuff that's hurting people, and you know darn well you don't need to be doing that stuff, don't do that stuff. But I mean, like, being creative and just living a creative life, can nobody tell you how to do you? Can't nobody tell you what your journey is? You know, it's very different for everyone. Also, don't compare yourself to everybody, because that'll really help, it'll really distort your view of self and your work, and that's terrible. Because then you'll just be like, well, I'm not as good as, or I'm not this, I'm not like them, and I can very easily do that. There's a lot of other comedians I can compare myself to, there's a lot of other dancers, but when I do that, it just kind of halts me in my tracks, and I don't really see the uniqueness in what I'm doing and how that adds. You want to be consistently adding. It's not about having all this space to yourself. It's about sharing and making room for other creatives, for other people to express their unique narrative, right? So do you, and allow people to do them, and occasionally do stuff with each other. It's great, and you'll be very surprised how you grow from interacting and collaborating with other creatives. Collaboration is key, it's very important. And then also consistently expose yourself to new people, new things, new ideas, new places. The first couple of years in New York I spent there, because I was there for 4 years. The first couple of years spent was literally spent just trying not to die, because I was there by myself and I didn't have any family, and all my friends were still in Texas. And but in that time, because I was in a new place, by the time I did start performing again and really trying to grow myself creatively and do the show, I had so much material just by being there and soaking up the different culture of New York City. So that's important too. Different places, different things, different ideas. If you dance, try a different type of dance. Even if you suck at it, you will open up your movement so much more just by being exposed to it. So yeah. The best piece of advice I was ever given came from Pawpaw, my grandfather. He passed away a few years ago. It's been very hard, because he was like my best friend. And but he was always, we had a very, very close relationship. And his words, even when I'm fearful of losing sight of his face, his words I still hear. And I was frustrated one day. As usual, I'm always frustrated and frazzled and a mess. I'm a mess. It's okay. And Papa was always like, you gotta calm down, Rush, you gotta calm down. I'm just like, but why, Papa? Like, do you see what's happening? This is too much. I can't, whatever. I was a teenager in life. Yeah. And he said, do you know how to eat a whale? I said, no, Papa, what do whales have to do with this? Like, flipper, orcas, free willy, like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, I have a real problem, and you're talking about marine wildlife. And he was just like, just answer the question. Do you know how to eat a whale? I said, I don't know, like, you have to have like a fork that's the size of like, I don't know, the Eiffel Tower or something. And he's just like, no. I was like, well, what, Papa? One bite at a time. And that's the best. If I didn't make no sense when he told me. But now that I'm older, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time. And so when I get overwhelmed, when I get frustrated, I just think about that I have to just eat it one bite at a time. And I think that's what you have to do with life, and especially a creative life, because there's so many like factors that you can't predict. It's a very unpredictable life to live as a creative, and especially as a performer. But when things come to you, you just one bite at a time. My greatest creative fear is running up dry. It's just coming up short. And when I started doing this show, and I started doing this show late in 2014 in New York City, constantly surrounded by creative people and creative things. And when I did that first show, I was surprised it went well, one. And then two, I was surprised at how empty I felt afterwards. Not from the experiences, like I said, that was spiritually renewing. But afterwards, I was fearful that I don't know if I can do this again. Like, how can I keep doing this? Like, I didn't think that was gonna work, and it did. And now I gotta keep doing it because that actually worked. So where does it come from? And so I just pray about it, honestly, because I understand, like for me, and I don't know what anybody else believes, but to me, my creativity and my inspiration are gifts from God. And so as long as I am open to Him pouring into me, then I will never run empty. And I just have to have faith that I have been put on earth to be a vessel for that creativity and to be a vessel of change, you know? And as long as I have that in mind, it just keeps on flowing. Because I always feel like, I don't know if I can do this again. And I do it. By the grace of God, I do it. But, you know, so being able to take my show around everywhere, like all over the world, and because it's hip hop, because it's comedy, it builds community also everywhere I go, and that's kind of the point. So even if I just if I had a show booked every month in different places, I'm happy about that. That's fine. I can keep it cute, keep it pushing. You gotta catch me live, honey. Whenever I think about creativity, I also think of it as sometimes a bit of a privilege in order to create, to be able to create and be in a space in which you can be creative. You want to think about Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? And the top is self-actualization. And at the bottom, it's like safety, security, career, love, affection. And all those needs have to be taken care of before you can self-actualize. And there's a lot of people who are just surviving, period. And surviving is not living, contrary to popular belief. You just getting through, just getting by is not living. You're literally just existing. But to have a quality existence, I do believe you need to be allowed to be creative. But if you're in a space where you don't feel safe and you don't have a place to stay and you on the streets, you're not thinking about it. Creativity is the farthest from your mind. You are literally just trying to survive. So creativity is also a privilege in terms of class even. I have people who love me, and my family and my community that supports me is in a space to where I can do what I do. I can be creative. I can make a career out of being creative. It may take long for me to get a return, but I can. And I feel like the people that I see in my life who don't have the opportunity in the space to be creative, or had to squelch their creativity in order to survive, in order to make ends meet, because there were more important things on the agenda, like family and stuff like that. When I look at them, I see them dying. And they're not dying like necessarily a physical death, but it's a spiritual death. And I feel like there's not enough emphasis on spiritual health as much as there is on physical health or financial health, wealth. I create because I'm a creator, and I do create with intent a lot of times, but I also create just because for me it's like breathing. If I'm not creating something, I can't live. Like I really believe if I was not able to create, I would die. And it sounds very extreme, but it's just that important to me. And I'm like very blessed to have talent and mediums where I can express all that's inside of me, because I want to leave this world empty. I'm still in a space where I can be creative. My spirit can breathe. My mind can evolve. I'm constantly growing and changing and evolving. And I feel like everyone deserves a chance to do that. And I feel like a creative life is a good life. A creative life is a healthy life. A creative life is a life filled with light, is a life filled with beauty, is a life filled with love, but also a life that could also be filled with pain. But a creative life gives you the ability to transform that pain into something that is beautiful. A creative life makes you a transformer, and you can then transcend that is around you. And that's a really cool space to be in. I am Rachel Jackson, and I am all things